Hello everyone. Today we've got a video that has taken quite a bit of time and research to compile. Hope you can appreciate what we've put together here for you. It's Lee Cullum with Northcraft Analytics, co-founder and chief marketing officer. And I've got Chris Yates today, who's going to take us through DIY versus BYOBI. DIY with a data visualization tool like Tableau or Power BI, two most popular, common, or BYOBI with a Northcraft solution on the back end using either Tableau or Power BI. Now our example is going to be Power BI today. So this is part one of our series. There are going to be multiple parts due to the complexity of the topic, which you'll be able to see pretty quickly. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So let's start with kind of how a hacked up software development life cycle slash, agile approach works in the traditional way of implementation of business intelligence versus Northcraft. So we'll start with the traditional method here. Okay, so if you want to implement, let's say, a solution only for incident management, right, for ServiceNow, and you want to build it with your BI team, there are some of the activities involved. First, we're going to gather our key performance indicators, reading books like Measuring ITIL. We're going to interview the current report users, take screenshots, develop report requirements. We're going to have the BI team document the data model and then present that back to the report users and say, hey, do you need this field? Do you need that field? Or they'll be able to take the screenshots and report requirements and kind of piece that together. Next is your visualization options. Okay, so if you need to choose a tool, then you are tied to a BI Viz tool. In other words, Power BI has a Sankey visualization out of the box. Tableau doesn't. And, based on our needs, we're going to need the ability to visualize this data with a Sankey diagram, something like that. Okay, so you've got to gather your visualization options, learn the capabilities of the two different tools, and make a decision about which tool is best for your particular report requirements. Okay. Next, we moved into the design phase. We need to, learn in depth the data model of the enterprise application, such as, Jira, Remedy, ServiceNow, SolarWinds, etc. We need to model our data warehouse and identify, again, now really in depth at a technical level, all of the relevant fields, going beyond just, simply what's on displayed on the report. And define our calculations based on the list, okay? At this point, the users have not had the ability to touch any of those calculations, so that may be an issue later. Next, in the build phase, we're going to build those measures, average resolve time, percent CPU utilization, whatever it is. Okay. Then we'll set our KPI goals based on the business unit that's demanding it. They might be different, for example, for desktop support versus enterprise applications versus the network team. We're going to create the reports. We're going to create the dashboards. And that's always going to be necessary for, because custom report requirements will always come up. We're going to define and build the role access here for, analyst, director, executive. And then we're going to go back and forth in what I call the death trap here, which is to present users a solution. And then they say, nope, that's not the right calculation, that's not the right goal, that's not the right visualization, etc., and go back and forth. Now, you may have an excellent BI person who eliminates some of that effort, but generally speaking, that's what's going to happen. Okay, next, BYOBI with Northcraft. So you can choose any tool you like: Tableau, MicroStrategy, Excel, Power BI. You can review the list of key performance indicators that we already have pre-built, of which there are over 3,000. And you can choose which you want to hide from the users. You can test them immediately post-installation rather than in implementation phase. So that's something where the users can interact with the system, and they will still come back and say, no, that doesn't work, that does. We'll put together status reports, you or us, your project manager internally. Then, of course, and I never want to discount this, having dinners with the Northcraft team. And we're just as clever in person as we are on the YouTube channel. Testing phase will be more extensive, really, is what will happen. Testing probably gets the short shrift when you have to do it yourself because there's so much. Spend a little more time setting KPI goals. No measures built, although you can request them through the support center. And there are 30 to 40 per process area that will build just as a function of the rollout of each process area in the implementation. That's included in the statement of work. So you're using our out-of-the-box content. You can use our Singularity content, which is out of the box, of which there are hundreds of reports and dashboards. And you can, peel them apart yourself rather than build them from scratch. Or you can, copy and paste or build from scratch as well. Now we're going to get into next, really the 8 benefits post-implementation. And a lot of this is when you are building yourself, okay, and enabling true self-service for ad hoc report and dashboard development, if you can see my bunny quotes on that. It's a lot less development. It's really picking and choosing, okay? So, and this is what Chris is going to show you in just a little bit. So, number one are the data limits. So, and the data limits will vary in Tableau and Power BI, but there are data limits. Okay, so they're different because of DAX architecture / HTML5 with Power BI and SQL / JavaScript with Tableau. But I mean, if you look in Tableau's public documentation, you'll see, for ServiceNow specifically, 100,000 records to query is 18 minutes. And in all likelihood, that's not going to happen anyway, because you're going to run into WAN latency, etc. Number 2, is scripting. Chris is going to show you DAX and Power BI. And a lot of you will have familiarity with SQL and Tableau. It's not that either are particularly hard, it's just that they do take time to complete, and it opens up errant calculations or differing calculations between same people, calculating the same thing differently. So you get to really leverage our pre-built measures KPIs, and Chris will show you that. Next is live data versus schedule refreshes. Again, it's not like schedule refreshes are particularly difficult, but the administration grows exponentially the more you add. Not to mention, different data sources have different settings. Again, it's just all increasing headache. We'll show you server-side data mashup versus client-side. So our multidimensional solutions have built-in server-side data mashup. So you'll see Chris do incident and CMDB from ServiceNow versus Power BI mashup. And the thing about client-side mashup is that it's a static throwaway analysis. Number 6, we're going to show you query speed and scalability. The nice thing with Northcraft is that you have both. You have SQL and MDX. And in fact, you also have streaming SQL and DAX and some other options, but without any kind of scripting or doing building your own. MDX will, in our example, show you how you can query 246,000 records immediately, and not even including bringing in all of the related configuration items, which has got to make that query of Chris's here, you're going to see in just a little bit, approaching greater than 1 million records, somewhere in that neighborhood, around 1 million records, versus, leveraging SQL and Tableau, for example, or even SQL and Power BI. That's just not a query that's going to work reasonably. So, not to mention the fact that you're limited to, let's say, 30,000 records, which is what we experienced with quite a bit of memory on the client side. Next, pre-built ETL versus ad hoc, and anyone who's looked at an ETL developer salary knows why they're paid highly. It's mind-numbing work. It represents a significant amount of development efforts here at Northcraft even. So Chris will show you one little annoying example with respect to time and hierarchies. And I'm not going to bore you with the complexities of business time, epoch time, and daylight savings, but I think we can safely say ETL is a pain. There are tools that automate it, but they still don't give you the quality of a human being creating it as you get with Northcraft. Finally, in governance, you have total control over the calculations with Northcraft with our pre-built metadata, KPIs, calculations, attributes, dimensions. That's great. You can still build custom with Northcraft if you have some hardcore analysts that are familiar with SQL at a very deep level against our data warehouse. But the cubes really enable self-service along with the speed and the power. So, a classic example of a problem in the ITSM space in the remedy world is calculating average resolution time and whether you should use resolve date, last resolve date, or close date. So governance, I think, everybody's experienced the issues with Excel and, different ways of calculating the same thing in different spreadsheets. That can happen in Tableau and Power BI as well. But when you have a solution that operates on the server and is governed with administrator access, you're going to reduce greatly the amount of governance problems that you have and allow your your hardcore process analysts that are technical and have that BI background, they're going to give them still the ability to do what they need to ad hoc, but have self-service for everyone else. Now, so those are some things to keep in mind for today, and Chris is going to show you these principles in action. So I really hope you enjoy what we built.
Let's start by adding a new page here in Power BI Desktop. And our first example will be simply getting data. So to get data, we're going to click Get Data. And right now I have a CSV file that I'm pulling from, which is pretty common in this scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and select CSV. And here's my file, DIY versus NCA. So I'll double click that. Now I'm pulling that over. Now we'll see our little snapshot of what this data looks like to confirm that this is what we want. This is what we want. So I'll go ahead and hit load. Now we were loaded in. Like I said earlier, I believe this is about 30,000 records. Not many columns here. Had to keep the numbers down for performance issues so I could actually get this video done. So we've got a simple incident management cube, or not cube, but data set. We're not in a cube yet. That'll be Northcraft. What I'll do here is just create a basic report. I'm going to go ahead and throw in numbers. Here's my incident numbers. Table of incident numbers, great. That's good to have. But one thing you might notice is that we don't have any counts. I'd like to see total incidents, things like that. This isn't a very hard thing to do yourself in Power BI, but it's still another step. It leaves things open for calculation. But what we'll want to do, there's a couple options. Right now I'll just go ahead and do count with my value here. So now I have my total count. I'll turn that into a number card. All right, so now let's go ahead and add a little bit more information. We'll come back here and add a table again before we switch over to the Northcraft example. And again, I'll pull in my number, so I have my incident number. As you can see, it still works the same. If you're familiar with Northcraft, simply click the field you want to bring in or the measure, and it will bring it in. You can also drag and drop, and then you select your visualization you'd like. So now I've got a few other things here. I have priority. I have close time, I have open time. I can reorder those if I'd like. One thing you notice here is Power BI. This isn't really the true format of my close and open times here. It's showing me a year, quarter, month, day, and a year again. Or no, that's the different one. So I still don't even have a time of day, so I need to go back over here and change this format. See, it went ahead and changed it to a date hierarchy. It's just a little extra step. I have to change that back to close time so I can see my actual close time. Do the same thing for open time as well. So now let's switch over to a Northcraft connection, to a live connection to the Northcraft cubes, and see how this works there. So what I'll do is just go ahead and hit File and New, open up a new instance of Power BI Desktop. Let that load up for a second. And I will just close this out, and let's go ahead and get data. Normally, if you haven't already connected to Power BI, to Northcraft, you would want to go ahead and go here and click Analysis Services and manually enter the server. I actually have connected to it recently. Instead of doing that, I'm going to go ahead and go to Recent Sources and click Live Connection to my server. And now I'm going to go down to my data set, which is right here. Here's my incident cube. Go ahead and double click. And now I am in the Northcraft solution with my incident management cube. So I can see the measures, calculations, and fields available to me. I want to go ahead and copy what I did on the previous one. So you can see here I have everything pre-built and laid out for me. Anything with a calculator is a measurement. Calculator emblem in front of it. Anything with a stoplight image is a KPI, and anything that looks like a table is an attribute field, like a class or a descriptive field anyway. So let's go ahead and bring in incidence total. I have it right here. Go ahead and click that. I'll turn that into a card. As you can see, I'm pulling from about 250K records now. Quite a bit more, and that was very quick. Go ahead and pull my table in like I had before. I can use my metadata search and search for my incident number right there. And then I think I did submit time, close time, etc. So we'll go down here to my incident folder, attributes folder, and I'll go to my dates and times, and then I'll do close time, open time. They're not in the right order, but we throw them in. And now you see how quick that is. So we'll go on to our next step now. And that next step will be something along some sort of calculation. Let's say, I have my incidence total here. I want to keep that up at all times on my report if I can. So I don't want to use a filter to look at things like my priority. So one thing I can do, let's go ahead and look at incidents priority critical, and as you can see I have that here already pre-calculated for me. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in as well like I did before. Just click the field there, the checkbox. I will also turn that into a number card, and as you can see I have 39,000 incidents priority critical. We can also add in the priority to the table down here. Let's see, where are we at? All right, under classification we have priority. Oops, I didn't click the table. Make sure I do that. Perfect. And now let's switch back over to my DIY version of this report with my manual imported data. And let's look at how we would do the same thing there. So this is it here. Perfect. As you can see, I do have some priority fields here, or a priority field. So I can go ahead and bring that in. Oh, I already did bring it in, so I already have it in that table. And I think I want to do the same thing here with the number card. So there's a couple options. I could, quickly bring this into a page level filter and filter to look at my criticals. But now that's changed everything. Now I'm only seeing criticals here, only seeing critical on this card, which, that could be okay depending on your use case, but I want full functionality here. So in order to do that with this DIY setup, I'm going to have to calculate that. I'm going to have to do a custom query. So what I will do here is go ahead and right click and create a measure. And again, this is where the whole point about governance comes in. If you notice before in the Northcraft solution, there's no editing these measures. There's no changing the calculations on the fly to suit your needs or maybe your goals. Not insinuating any nefarious goals going on in IT organizations, but with the DIY solution, when you're querying constantly and doing custom queries, there's always the potential for fudging data, essentially. So you can see that here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and input my query here. I need to make this measure. So first thing, I'm going to change the title to something that I want. So we'll go ahead and call this total critical, if I can spell, critical incidents. I really can't type today. And now I need to find my calculation. There's always there's a lot of options for this. I mean, I could do count A, filter down to by priority, calculation, do a bunch of do ifs, an if statement. I think the simplest way here, I'll probably do a count A in an expression, so that will be count AX. Go ahead and hit enter. And these can get tricky if you're not familiar with the syntax, even and the data structure. What your tables look like. But I'll go ahead. So I need to go ahead and put in a filter here for my table. So what this filter is going to do is create a separate table that is filtered down to just what I'm going to make it do is filter down to just critical priority incidents, and then I will count those. So will type in filter and go ahead and enter this. I need now my table that I'm pulling from, so that's going to be, I think that starts with DIY. There we go. Now we will do my column that I want to filter on, so I will do DIY again, go down to priority, and you can see, I mean, this is quick. Power BI makes it as easy as possible, but again, this is more time, and this is something you may have to do every time depending on how you have your reporting structure set up and your data source set up for you. And that's concerning refreshes and everything else. So now I'm filtering on column priority by the field I want to filter on. So I need critical. So I think these are, so that's 1- critical. Oop, did I do parentheses? Yeah, I did. 1- critical. Close that. And close my parentheses. And then I need to tell it which one to count now that I've filtered it. I'll go ahead and tell it to count the incident number again. Just follow that schema. All right. And hit enter. So now we've got that. You can see here on the right, we have our new measure, total critical incidents. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. And we are blank. So we've got an issue here. Let's see. So this is going back to problem with measures. You can make typing, typos, small errors. Let me review this really quick. I think what I'll do, I think I've typed my priority incorrectly, so I'll just copy this value and bring it in there and see if that's my problem. I probably don't have the right spacing. It's hard to tell what it is without looking at the actual source table. Hopefully that's it. That was it. Yep. So I mean, things like that are going to pop up all the time if you are familiar with business intelligence, getting your syntax and your queries correct and the correct names and structure of it is always tedious, and you have to pay attention to that. And now if I want to see total moderate incidents, let's say, we would essentially do the same thing over again. This time we won't have to type out everything since we have the basis for it in this measure. So what I'll do is I'll just click, well, first I'll copy this measure so I don't have to type it out again. And then I'll do new measure again. Go ahead, copy paste, and I'll make that moderate. And then I'll go ahead and change critical. I should probably copy that again so I don't run across that same problem. So copy value, and then I'll go back and click my moderate incidents, paste that value in there instead of critical, hit enter. Now that should be ready to go for me. Yep, we have data there now. Now we can see we have over 5,000 moderate incidents. The same thing can be done in the Northcraft solution because it's already there for you. So it's as simple as that. Now let's talk about data mashups or multi-dimensional reporting, bringing in different tables, different data sources into one report. Pretty simple with Northcraft because that is the main thing we were built around, and we'll show you that in a second. Doing it yourself, There's quite a few more steps involved and a lot more thinking and critical thinking and a lot more code involved. We'll try to do it simply. I have another table that I can bring in that's pretty simple. So again, to speed this up, we'll go ahead and go to text.csv and import some more data. And I believe, yeah, I have it right here. I'm going to bring in a CMDB table. So there we are. There's our preview. I'll go ahead and click load. And now we have, as you can see here, we have a CMDB table, but we have no column headers for some reason. So let's go ahead and fix that because I don't know what those are. Might be something to do with the export I had there. So let's go ahead and click edit queries and see where we're at. So let's go to our CMDB table. Yeah, that's it. So as you can see, for some reason it slid down my column header. Really the only solution is to go through, well, the easiest solution is to go through and just manually change these. So I'll do that really quickly. I'll just call that config item. Call this one sys ID. Model ID, class, category, manufacturer, and short descript. I'll just abbreviate that, and then IP address. I'll just do IP. Now I need to remove that first row because that will mess me up. So I need to remove rows. So here we go. Here, remove rows, remove top rows, and then I'll specify how many of the top rows I want to remove. I'm going to remove just one, the first one. There we are. I have it removed now. So now that I've done that, there is no undo option here. Just keep that in mind when you're editing queries. You can only restart. Once you hit apply, it's done. You have to go back and redo everything you've done. So your only option if you mess something up is just to hit close and then start over. So I'm going to hit close and apply. So now you can see I have my field names here available to me to join these two tables together. So to do that, I'll click manage relationships and I need to select new. You can hit auto detect. It doesn't always work. So now let's see, I've selected one table. It knows that there's only one other one to look at, so it throws that one in as well. And now I have to select my two fields that I want it to relate the tables together with. And I'm making this relationship active. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do many to many. That may not be correct because these incidence numbers probably don't line up between the two tables completely. Simply, there may be different incident numbers in each table. All right, so we've done that. So I'll close. I've set up my relationships. Now in this table, I should be able to bring in my configuration items. Yep, there we go. My category, my class, my number, and oh, I already have the number. I can do short description. And yes, I mean this looked, this wasn't that slow, but keep in mind this is a really small data set. Very few fields to contend with, and this may be something you have to repeatedly do, especially if you want to do any calculations. I'm not going to get into that today because that's a whole another set of videos dealing with multiple dimensions and querying between the two, doing measures. We're simply just bringing in attributes right now from the CMDB. So let's move back over to Northcraft and see how that's done. So again, I'll just switch back over to Northcraft. And I already have my CMDB tables in here, my dimension here from the CMDB. And I'll go ahead and go to summary information and pull in the same stuff we had before. So I think I don't know if I did sysid, but oops, let me click. But I know I had it available, so I'll just go ahead and bring it in. We can do, what was it, model ID, manufacturer. Now some of these are not specified, but I'll sort in a second to show you. IP address. There's just a lot more incidents here that aren't related to CIs, and that's a whole nother problem, right? A chance for CMDB accuracy improvement and completion. So I'll go ahead and sort by sysid just to show that we do have data here. And now we can see that we have some stuff populated in the CMDB that is related to these incidents. And that's really that's the bulk of what I was planning on showing today. A couple other points before we close this out, though, is that, you know, with Northcraft, this is what you're going to get out of the box. You'll at least have this, what you're seeing here on the right, all these fields available to you. And this is only incident management. There's many, many more cubes and modules available to you from Northcraft from multiple data sources: ServiceNow, Remedy, Jira, list goes on, SolarWinds. But all of these, you know, all of these are measures that have been pre-calculated on the server. If you were to do this yourself, a lot of these do involve joins and multiple dimensions. These would require quite a bit of legwork on the back end, you know, with ETL, as well on the front end with these DAX queries, or with whatever BI tool you're using, whether it's Tableau. It's the same premise is there. You're querying with a different language, but it's still manual queries. So hopefully this was informative for you today. Feel free, if you have any questions, to leave a comment below. Reach out to us at northcraftanalytics.com, and keep watching the videos.